Have you ever wondered if the people who lead us have ever asked what truth really is? We live in a world where politics often feels like a noisy battlefield, full of shouting, promises, and power games. But what if we've forgotten something deeper? What if behind all the noise something important is missing? Think of politics as a body, strong, powerful, and always moving. Now think of philosophy as the soul, quiet, thoughtful, asking deeper questions. What happens when the body keeps running, but the soul is no longer there? Long ago, this wasn't the case. In ancient times, like in Greece or India, leaders were also thinkers. They were expected to reflect on life, justice, and truth. They believed that real leadership came not just from strength, but from wisdom. But today we separate the two. Leaders don't need to be philosophers. They just need to win votes, raise money, and stay popular. The deeper questions about what's right, what's real, or what kind of world we're building are pushed aside. So ask yourself, what kind of world do we end up with when those in power stop thinking deeply? Over 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Plato had a radical idea. He believed that the best ruler is not a soldier or a rich man or someone who's simply popular. No, he said the best ruler is a philosopher. Why? Because only philosophers truly search for truth. They don't chase fame. They don't serve their own desires. They want to understand what is real and what is just. In his book, The Republic, Plato tells the story of people trapped in a dark cave. They only see shadows on the wall, and they think those shadows are real. But one person escapes and sees the sun, the truth. That person, Plato said, is the philosopher, and that's the kind of person who should lead. It sounds beautiful, but it also raises a problem. What if a leader thinks they know the truth, but they're wrong? What if they use their wisdom to control others? Some say Plato's idea is too risky, that it could lead to tyranny in disguise. Still, the question remains, can we ever have true justice if our leaders don't search for truth? Now let's travel back in time. In ancient India, there was a king named Ashoka. He once led bloody wars, but after seeing the pain he caused, he turned to Buddhism. He chose peace over conquest, wisdom over violence. His government became centered around compassion and truth. In ancient China, Taoist thinkers said that the best leader is one who rules like nature itself, gentle, balanced, and invisible. The greatest ruler, they said, is the one whose people barely notice him, because he creates harmony, not control. These are not fairy tales. These were real systems of government. They lasted for generations. They didn't just ask, what laws should we pass? They asked, what is the right way to live? How can we align with the universe, with nature, with the soul? But these systems didn't last forever. As time went on, greed and war returned. Power replaced wisdom. The soul was forgotten again. Still, their stories remain, like whispers from the past, reminding us of a different way to lead. Now, look around. Politics today feels more like a show than a service. Leaders perform. They wear masks. They say what people want to hear. And they focus on the next election, not the next generation. Truth becomes a tool. Promises are made to gain power, not to keep it. The loudest voices win, not always the wisest. Finally, we've built a system where speed matters more than wisdom, where money speaks louder than morals, and where short-term gains matter more than long-term peace. Many of us don't even notice. We've gotten used to it, but deep down we feel it. Something is missing, a kind of emptiness. Maybe it's the soul of politics, the part that used to ask, what is good? What is true? What is just? Without those questions, are we really building a future, or are we just running in circles? Even if it seems like philosophy is gone from politics, it's still there, quietly, in the background. Every political idea we know, freedom, equality, justice, comes from a philosopher. Laws about rights, that's Locke. Democracy, that's Rousseau. Questions about fairness and the economy, that's Marx. Warnings about blind obedience? That's Nietzsche. Even the ideas we fight about today, liberty, fairness, progress, they're not new. They're old arguments dressed in modern clothes. You might think you're just choosing between policies or parties, but really you're choosing between philosophies, different views of what it means to be human. Even doing nothing, being silent, is a choice, a belief about life. So philosophy never truly disappears. It just hides inside our systems, our words, our habits. The question is, are we aware of it? Here's the problem. Philosophy asks deep questions. It welcomes doubt. It says, maybe we're wrong. But politics wants answers. Fast, clear, strong. It says, we must act now. So, what happens when a philosopher enters the world of power? History gives us examples. Socrates asked too many questions and was sentenced to death. Václav Havel, a poet and thinker, challenged a regime with ideas and became a president. Noam Chomsky, a modern philosopher, speaks truth to power, but is often ignored by those in it. Truth-tellers don't always fit in. They're seen as troublemakers, too idealistic, too slow. So we ask, can truth survive in politics, or does power always crush it? And deeper still, is the philosopher forever destined to live outside the gates of power, watching, questioning, but never ruling? But maybe something is changing. All around the world, new ideas are rising. Movements that don't just demand change, but seek meaning. Leaders who listen, systems that think beyond profit, ideas that blend science, spirit, and ethics. We see it in systems thinking, in eco-philosophy, in the wisdom of indigenous cultures, where leadership is not control but care, not command but connection. Maybe the next era of politics won't be about parties or platforms. Maybe it will be about consciousness, not just laws but inner awareness, not just policies but purpose. Imagine if politics became sacred again, not religious but spiritual, a place where we asked not just how to govern others, but how to govern ourselves. What kind of world would that be, and are we brave enough to build it? In the end, philosophy and politics are not enemies. One seeks truth, the other shapes reality, but without each other, both are lost. So the question remains, not just for leaders, but for you. What truths guide your life? What kind of world are you choosing every time you speak, act, or stay silent? Because the future is not just built by the powerful, it's built by the aware. What if the most powerful force in politics isn't money or weapons, but ideas? Think about it. Revolutions don't begin with guns. They begin with questions, books, thoughts that spread like wildfire. The world's greatest changes often come from people who never held office, never led armies, and never ruled kingdoms. They sat in silence, asked difficult questions, and shook the world. This is the story of how philosophy has always been hidden inside politics, often ignored, sometimes feared, but always there. Let us begin by asking, why do powerful leaders fear thinkers? And why do deep ideas scare those who seek control? Long ago, rulers and philosophers weren't separate. They were often the same person. In ancient Greece, Plato dreamed of a perfect society led by philosopher kings. He believed only the wise should rule. In ancient China, Confucius taught that rulers must lead with kindness, virtue, and inner strength. Back to use. Then politics was more than laws and taxes. It was about becoming a good person. Leaders were expected to be wise, just, and thoughtful. We may have lost that today. Now politics often feels like a game of power, not wisdom. But once being a ruler meant being a student of life, a seeker of truth. Over time, things changed. Philosophy and politics began to split. In the 1500s, a man named Machiavelli said, "Leaders shouldn't worry about being good. They should worry about staying in power." He believed fear was more useful than love. Later, during the Enlightenment, thinkers like Hobbes and Locke wrote about freedom and government. But their ideas stayed in books. Politics became more about rules and systems than deep thinking. Today we elect leaders for their speeches, not their wisdom. We follow parties, not principles. The thinker was pushed out, replaced by the manager, the strategist, the influencer. And we have to ask, what did we lose? Here's the truth. Every political system is based on a belief about what people are. If you believe people are selfish, you build a strong government to control them. If you believe people are kind, you build freedom. Marx believed history is shaped by money and power. His ideas led to revolutions. Nietzsche believed in the will to power. His words were twisted by dictators. Rousseau believed in the power of the people. His ideas shaped democracy. Politics is not separate from philosophy. It's the shadow it casts. What we vote for, what we protest, what we believe the world should be. All of it begins with a question about human nature.